Hello, I'm John Coleman from ApocatastasisInstitute for the Humanities and Alternative College and High School here on New Milford, Connecticut, USA. The purpose of this recording is to get in our July 25th, 2025 edition of News with the Fetz, and we're continuing looking at the sordid Epstein, or is it Epstein, cover up? We'll have a nod to Young Frankenstein there. Some of you get the reference, some of you don't. But we are looking on a more serious note at this serious ongoing story. It will not, thanks be to God, it will not be shunted off, despite how power brokers might want it to be. So we're looking at that, and just one announcement on my end, and then I give the floor over to Dr. Fetzer, and that is to take a look and consider enrolling in Dr. Fetzer's Conspiracy 101 course. And in addition to Dr. Fetzer's sites, Moonrock Books, and his own jameshfetzer.org site in the description, I will also put the class page where we have the different topics Dr. Fetzer is going to get into. This is a full semester long college course with discussion and reading, perhaps writing if Dr. Fetzer so wishes for the students. And I will put that information down below. With all of that being said, welcome, Dr. Fetzer. I'm going to cue up the slides. And sir, you have the floor this 25th of July.
Oh, my great pleasure, John. Yes. Before we turn to the Epstein cover-up, we have a report from Martin Armstrong, who's an economist who's been remarkable in the precision of his predictions of major events in the past using a computer model. And according to him, there's a 100% chance NATO is going to trigger total nuclear war in the next year, based upon our current trajectory, meaning the leadership in the NATO nations, which want war. Very disappointing. It should be the case, but there it is. And if it comes to that, Russia has 5,580 nukes on standby and has declared a national threat after Trump's latest move opens the door for NATO to flood Ukraine with weapons. Russia has issued a chilling nuclear warning following President Trump's endorsement of a NATO-backed weapon transfer plan, allowing European allies to purchase billions worth of U.S.-made weapons destined for Ukraine. System Ukraine now has explicit permission to use against Russia. Bad. With 5,500 nuclear warheads on standby, Moscow has effectively declared the West a legitimate nuclear target. The red lines are gone. We are in uncharted, catastrophic territory. For those still clinging to the illusion World War III is avoidable, let this be your wake-up call. World War III is not on the horizon. It's not a potential future. It is happening now, unfolding in real time while our leaders distract us with slogans and selfies. The Cold War is over. What lies ahead is far hotter. We've entered a phase where the margin for error is zero. One glitch, one misread radar, one miscalculated move by a rogue leader. That's all it takes. And when it happens, it won't be a slow burn. It will be sudden, absolute, and irreversible. The Kremlin doctrine has changed. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov delivered the signal loud and clear. Russia's nuclear doctrine is not just intact, it's operational. The recent U.S. decision to greenlight arms sale to Ukraine via European NATO states, announced by Donald Trump, has ignited deep fears in Moscow. What Western media won't tell you is that Russia has redefined its doctrine. According to that doctrine, any aggression against Russia or its allies, even by non-nuclear states, can now be interpreted as a direct act of war if supported by a nuclear power. That means any NATO-backed operation inside Ukraine targeting Russian forces, or even territory Russia claims as its own, could be seen as justification for a nuclear first strike. This isn't theory, it's written policy. Russia's nuclear playbook was rewritten in 2023 to explicitly allow the use of nukes, not only in response to weapons of mass destruction or threats to the state's existence, but also in the case of large-scale conventional attacks, especially those supported by NATO powers. Meanwhile, the Russian arsenal is larger, faster, deadlier than the West can comprehend. Russia has the largest nuclear stockpile on Earth, 5,580 nuclear warheads, 4,300 operational ready to launch, 1,710 deployed on ICBM subs and strategic bombers. Among these are the RS-28 Sarmat Satan II, capable of delivering up to 16 warheads and penetrating any U.S. missile defense. There's also the RS-26 Rebes, designed for regional decapitation strikes, and the RS-24 Yars, loaded with multiple independently targetable warheads, deployed both in mobile and silo-based configurations. Coming soon is a Keter system meant to replace the Yars and expand Russia's mobile strike capabilities even further. Let's be blunt. These are not Cold War relics. They are next-gen nuclear systems refined and tested for modern warfare. America's military, by contrast, hollowed out and unprepared. Face it, America is no longer a superpower in real military terms. We have no hypersonic weapons in full deployment. We have no 25 megaton nuclear warheads. We lack electronic warfare dominance. Russia doesn't. We have no effective Russia missile defense. Russia does. We can't even mine or enrich uranium thanks to deals signed under Hillary Clinton. We have no stealth subs that can vanish beneath enemy sonar. Russia does. Even our torpedoes are slow, outdated, and loud. Meanwhile, Russian Poseidon drones cruise silently beneath the sea, waiting. Let that sink in. America's military has been gutted from within and is posed to be crushed from without. Yet we prance about our cities, waving flags, funding foreign wars, policing pronouns, and worshiping technology, while the most terrifying military machine ever assembled prepares to strike. John, U.S. just got a very rude wake-up call from Russia, where its fighter jets intercepted a B-2 stealth bomber. Video shows U.S. reportedly got a very rude wake-up call from Russia when a Russian Su-34 fighter jet, joined by a Su-35 flanker jet, intercepted a B-2 stealth bomber in flight. They weren't supposed to even be able to see it on radar. Not only did Russian radar detect the B-2, but the fighter jets were able to intercept it. It's worth noting the bomb bay doors of the B-2 are open, making it very visible to radar. What begs another question: why were the bomb bay doors open? It's not yet known where or when the video is taken. Endeavoring to determine those facts, but after all, maybe this means our stealth bombers aren't so stealthy after all. John, your thoughts on all of the above?
Yes, a lot to say. On a lighter note, one of my thoughts this week around is how happy I am that the tech is working and you can easily get those slides up there. It makes the presentation go very, very nicely. So that's just on a lighter note. But towards this particular topic, a few things indeed. First of all, is the Ukrainian army continues to fall apart. The Russians have been building up on the ground for some time. Their latest recruitment drives are coming to full power, and they're doing what Russian military doctrine has done for 400 years, which is grinding away. But now they really have the strength to apply that. And I'm not the person who came up with this analogy, but the Ukrainian army, these poor people, just on a human level, I mean, it's like a corpse. The Ukrainian army and the Ukrainian nation is like a corpse on a table, and the globalists just keep pumping in blood, trying to keep this thing going. And it is impressive that the Ukrainian army has continued, as long as it has. Now, part of that's because they're recruiting old men, children, retarded people, ISIS, Polish people dressed up. Eventually, that even is going to get tapped out. The Russians have right now, I believe 700,000 men under arms engaged in one aspect of this special military operation or another. That is more than all of the NATO nations have potentially under arms. And the delusion of the NATO people to think that they can go toe to toe with Russia is madness. And yet these people are mad. Whether it's the pronouns or all sorts of mischief and much more subtle things than that. There is an aspect of madness at play. And as the experiment in Ukraine continues to fall apart, you will see these mad people acting the part more and more. And as I said before, and this is my final point as I kick it back to Dr. Fetzer, what's happening in Ukraine is a war of attrition. That is the Russian military doctrine. Wars of attrition, it's like a rubber band. You can pull it, and they pull for a long time. Afghanistan went on for 20 years. When it falls apart, it's going to fall apart fast. Like the Confederacy fell apart, like Germany in 1918 fell apart, and like Afghanistan fell apart. And there are many examples, but that's what's going to happen in Ukraine. And we see things entering maybe the beginning of the end.
Excellent comments, John. Excellent. Meanwhile, we have a report that Bondi told Trump his name is in the Epstein files. A lot of photographs from the past, crowded events with no nefarious contacts, but showing Trump with Jeffrey Epstein, who was his closest friend for 10 to 15 years, from like 87 to 2003. And even Epstein himself has confirmed to Michael Wolff, Trump biographer, that he was Trump's closest friend for 10 years. Meanwhile, Attorney General Bondi faced Democrat calls to testify before Congress following a newspaper report that she told President Trump that his name appeared in the files of the Epstein sex trafficking investigation. The Wall Street Journal reported Bondi told Trump his name was among many high-profile figures mentioned in the files, which the Justice Department this month said it would not release despite a clamor from online sleuths, conspiracy theorists, and members of Trump's base. And Senator Adam Schiff, whom I personally despise, but in this case is correct, responded to the Wall Street Journal report calling on Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel to appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Trump's personal ties to Epstein are well established. His name already known to have been included in records related to the wealthy financier, who we were told killed himself in jail in 2019 as he awaited trial on sex trafficking charges. But I can guarantee those reports are false. Meanwhile, a House subcommittee voted Wednesday to subpoena the Department of Justice for files in the Epstein investigation after Democrats goaded Republican lawmakers to defy Trump and GOP leadership to support the action. And John, this is such a catastrophe politically for the Republicans. I've seen estimates of as many as 40 to 50 seats lost in the House in the coming midterm elections. I don't doubt it. The House Oversight Committee issued subpoena Wednesday for Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted sex offender and girlfriend of the late Epstein, to testify before them in August. 3 Republicans on the Oversight Committee voted with Democrats, saying it through on an 8-2 vote. Democrats cheered the action as proof that their push for disclosure in the Epstein investigation was growing stronger. No doubt. The committee agreed to redact the information on victims, yet Democrats successfully blocked a push by Republicans to only subpoena information that was deemed to be credible. Language Trump has also used to allow them to edit out anything they don't want to appear on the grounds it's not credible. Meanwhile, the real Epstein list and what it really means: flight logs, selfies with celebrities, that's not proof. It's mind candy for lazy fools. Prosecution in court, that's proof. Not going on? Oh, yes, it is. You want to see what's on the real proven in court Epstein client list? It's no big secret. Here it is. And I got to tell you, it's pretty disgusting what we have here, John. I'm not going through the entire list, but it's out there. The names on the list, because they were identified in court by name and sworn testimony under oath, and records of their guilt are publicly available. All you got to do is look them up. You just have to know they exist. Flight logs. How many hundreds of self-important, too rich for their own good fools went to Jeffrey Epstein's Little St. James pedo island? They're not all pedophiles. Shouldn't that be obvious? The flight log is packed with everybody and his dog and cat, so the very idea of pedophilia and child sex trafficking looks ridiculous. Selfies taken with celebrities? Come on. Epstein and Maxwell were celebrity butterflies in New York, London, Washington, and Los Angeles for 20 years. Ghislaine spoke before the United Nations 9 times in the 1990s. Celebrities smile for selfies. They are not exactly geniuses. That's not proof. Meanwhile, Speaker Johnson shut down the House until September because of Epstein. This was a colossal political blunder, John. House Speaker Mike Johnson canceled votes planned for the Thursday before so Democrats could force another vote on releasing the remaining Epstein files on a theme of playing games, sending the House into its summer recess without conducting the vote. President Trump faces continued turmoil over the failure to release information about the notorious financier. Johnson called the Democrat vote to release the remaining files a sideshow, insisting the American people are best served by putting an end to the votes. Not so. The final vote before recess are scheduled for Wednesday afternoon. Johnson's announcement came after Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche announced Justice Department would meet with Ghislaine, currently serving a 20-year prison sentence for charges including trafficking underage girls to Epstein. Meanwhile, Republicans on the Oversight Committee began taking steps to depose Maxwell, preparing a subpoena for her to testify before the committee. John, they actually have now interrogated her, which I'm going to report. So I'll continue, and then you can add your thoughts. Breaking again with Trump. Massey pushes for release of Epstein files, and he ain't alone. President Donald Trump wants his boys, and in some cases gals, to leave the Jeffrey Epstein scandal in the past and accept a muted finding released by his admin. But U.S. Representative Thomas Massey, whom I admire, as you may have guessed, isn't on board. Massey, a Republican Trump wants out of office, has filed a discharge petition in the House calling on Attorney General Bondi to publicly release all unclassified records, document, communication, and investigative materials the federal government possesses relating to Epstein, the financier and convicted sex offender, whose death by suicide while in prison in 2019 had been at the center of a number of conspiracy theories, which once again are turning out to be conspiracy facts. We all deserve to know what's in the Epstein files, who's implicated, how deep this corruption goes, tweets fancy. Americans were promised justice and transparency. We're introducing a discharge petition that force a vote in the House of Representatives on releasing the complete files. He had some support. Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, whom I admire, Tim Burchett, Eric Burleson, Jeff Van Drew, and Lauren Boebert have all asked to go sponsor the legislation. And while House Speaker Mike Johnson has not publicly backed Massey's push, he told conservative media host Benny Johnson the government should put everything out there and let the people decide. Epstein had a network of influential friends, including well-known names, Prince Andrew, former President Bill Clinton, and Trump. Though the current president worked to put distance between himself and Epstein, calling him somebody that nobody cares about in a recent social media post. Trump said on the campaign trail he would declassify more files related to the investigation if he returned to office, and several key allies, including Vice President Vance, FBI Director Patel, Deputy Director Bongino, openly called for the investigation to be publicly released in the lead up to the 2024 presidential election. As recently as February, Bondi said, Epstein's client list was sitting on my desk to be reviewed, though recently she said that comment was in reference to a general file. Bondi invited several pro-Trump influencers to the White House and gave them binders entitled the Epstein Files Phase 1. Recipients displayed them to the press as they left the events that day, but later noted almost all of what was included had already been made public. Their tune has changed in recent weeks, and it drawn criticism from some of Trump's most loyal supporters. In early July, the U.S. Department of Justice and FBI issued a memo saying they had no evidence Epstein kept a client list and backed up previous conclusions his death was a suicide. No evidence exists to prompt additional arrests, it added, sparking backlash among who called for more action. Where Maxwell was convicted of trafficking a minor to engage in sex acts in 2021 and is now appealing for 20-year sentence, but she's also broken her silence from prison. Epstein is alive and blackmailing U.S. politicians. He's in Israel. For the first time since her conviction, Ghislaine Maxwell speaks from inside federal prison, abandoned by the elites who once protected her, betrayed by a system that promised leniency for her silence. She's done staying quiet. We asked her, is Jeffrey Epstein still alive? Why is the Department of Justice risking everything to bury the case? Who really visited the island? And why are the names still hidden? She didn't hold back. Maxwell claimed DOJ is sitting on undeniable proof of a client list, one that includes world leaders, billionaire CEOs, a former first lady who twice ran for the presidency, a woman, Maxwell says, whose appetite for cruelty left even Epstein speechless. She said the public was right to be suspicious that some of the most powerful voices now calling for justice were always part of the cover-up. There's not just a story about abuse. It's a story about power, espionage, and engineered silence at the highest levels of global power. John, your thoughts?
Yes, thank you for that update. There are quite a few startling things. Uh, yeah, so one of which is it's actually quite refreshing to see a true bipartisanship, at least in fits and starts on both sides of the aisle, so to speak. This topic is not partisan, as we're coming to find out. It ought not be. I mean, rooting out criminals and finding these networks ought to be the interest of everyone who's patriotically minded, regardless of party. It is strange, once again, that the present administration, it's not that this topic has fallen in their lap. They made the disclosure of these things part of the campaign, as you pointed out, Dr. Fetzer. And it is bizarre that they're pussyfooting around this and hemming and hawing. Uh, it is bizarre, and then you could say, okay, it's because some of them are implicated, and that's probably the case. But it is still so. I mean, did they not think that this would rise? Was it just a talking point in the prior election cycle, and people thought it would be shunted off? I don't know, but what a peculiar thing, and what a scandal to the diehard supporters of the MAGA movement, especially as you pointed out early on with the midterms looming. This is quite a peculiar thing. The other point with Ghislaine Maxwell, who was before she went down to Florida, was transferred. She was a neighbor of mine, so to speak, in the prison in Danbury, the women's prison. But startling the allegation that Jeffrey Epstein is in Israel, and he would not be the first person to go running away of that group of people to Israel. Don't forget Jonathan Pollard during the first Trump administration, and a long history of that skedaddling over there. So that's interesting too. We'll have to keep an eye on that point. And then the final thing I would bring up with this unedifying story, but a story that nevertheless needs to continue to be covered, is, speaking of continuing coverage, is for all of us, and particularly those with the vocation of journalists, to keep an ear to the track to how this network will reestablish itself. Whether or not Mr. Epstein is alive in Israel, don't think that this tool to blackmail people and to control nations has gone away. And this thing is like a hydra from the Greek mythology. Yeah, you can cut off a Franklin cover-up, or you can cut off a Catholic Church scandal, you can cut off an Epstein, but this thing will keep growing back. And all of us need not just to keep our head in the past 10 or 20 or 30 years with Epstein, ongoing story, but final point is also, where are the new blackmail rings and who are running those? So I kick it back to you, Dr. Fetzer. Thank you for that update with Epstein.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Now, what I'm about to report is going to be even more disturbing. Wall Street Journal birthday letter to Epstein bore Trump's signature drawing of a naked woman. Take a good look at the Donald as he stands there with Jeffrey Epstein. Take a good look. A collection of letters gifted to Jeffrey for his 50th birthday in 2003 included a note bearing Donald Trump's name and an outline of a naked woman, according to a Wall Street Journal report published Thursday. The drawing depicted a woman's breasts and a Donald signature in place of pubic hair, surrounded several lines of typewritten text, according to the newspaper, which reviewed the letter, concluding with the line, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." Trump, in an interview with the Journal, denied he wrote the letter, drew the picture, and threatened to sue the newspaper if it published the story, which it did, and he has. "I never wrote a picture in my life." Notice the misuse of language. Should have been "never drew." But we have plenty of sketches of him drawing skylines of New York, for example. "I don't draw pictures of women," he said, according to the Journal. "It's not my language. It's not my words." And of course, it's possible it could have been prepared for him but it does appear to have been his signature and his message. In response to the story, Trump posted on Truth Social he'd ordered Attorney General Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court appeal. She responded she was ready to do so Friday, though the process of getting judges to sign off on such a move would likely take considerably longer. Earlier in the evening, Trump vowed to sue the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch, saying that he and White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt had warned them about publishing the story and that the letter was fake. Now, bear in mind, this letter was included with a whole bunch of authors by famous people, including Bill Clinton, who's admitted he authored his letter in a bound volume. I think it's a bit preposterous for him to be making this claim, but there it is. The Wall Street Journal declared to comment when reached by CNN after the president declared that he would be suing them, News Corp and Mr. Murdoch. Vice President Vance also weighed in, calling the story complete and utter bullshit. How in the world Shady Vance could possibly know is beyond me. The Wall Street Journal report is likely to further fuel scrutiny of Trump's handling of a Justice Department review of the Epstein case that has roiled his mega base and consumed the White House for several days, and his polling has been dropping like a rock. Thursday evening, some of the most vocal voices on the right who had been pushing for more transparency from the admin came to Trump's defense and cast doubt on the Journal story. Far-right activist Laura Loomer, who's called for the admin to appoint special counsel to look into the handling of the Epstein files, called the letter totally fake. She wrote on X, everyone who actually knows President Trump knows he doesn't type letters. He writes notes in big black Sharpie. Another influential mega voice, Charlie Kirk, posted on X, this is not how Trump talks at all. I don't believe it. His post referred to the typewritten note in the letter envisioning a conversation between Trump and Epstein about there being more to life than having everything. Epstein, financier and socialite with a range of politicians and other powerful figures, was charged in 2019 with sex trafficking minors in Florida and New York. He was later found dead, or so we were told, but which gets laid as contradicted in a jail cell. And the video released, in my opinion, shows a blip of orange heading up the stairs as Epstein was making his escape. Medical examiners ruled the death a suicide, but you got photographs of the neck show a very deep red mark, which might be from a guillotine, but not from being hung by a sheet. But circumstances have spawned an array of conspiracy theories. In a memo last week, DOJ said Epstein did indeed die by suicide, false, and there was no Epstein client list, false, and allowed it wouldn't release any more docs related to the case, true, infuriating an influential contingent of Trump supporters who believe the admission would make all the administration would, because it had promised to do so, make all the Epstein files public. Trump has since angrily dismissed the backlash against his supporters of falling for a hoax by fixating on the case. He urged Republicans to drop the issue altogether. Ain't gonna happen. Their new scam is what we'll forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have bought into the bullshit hook, line, and sinker Trump posted Wednesday. Facing growing calls from supporters and members of Congress, Trump later said Bondi could release any additional credible files in the case, even as he lamented the stupid and foolish Republicans continuing to push the matter. Leavitt said Thursday Trump would not recommend a special prosecutor investigate the case despite calls from some of the president's closest allies to do so. It's an obvious good idea. According to the Wall Street Journal, the letter bearing Trump's name was included in a birthday album assembled by Maxwell, a close Epstein associate convicted of child sex trafficking in connection with him. She collected the letters from Trump and dozens of others for his 30th birthday. The album was later part of documents examined by DOJ officials who investigated Epstein years ago. Trump was photographed with Epstein, a financier who socialized with a range of politicians and other powerful figures on multiple occasions throughout the 1990s and 2000. Meanwhile, Ghislaine has been questioned by the DOJ, answered every question her lawyer says. Ghislaine answered every single question put to her by DOJ officials, her attorney has said. David Oscar Marcus briefly spoke to reporters outside a Florida courthouse after the disgraced British socialite was grilled during a meeting with Federal Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche on Thursday. That would be yesterday. Marcus did not take questions, but said Maxwell never declined to answer and did not invoke any privilege during the meeting. Prior, he said the team was looking forward to a productive day. Blanche did not address media following the meeting. The Deputy Attorney General later posted on X, "Today I met with Ghislaine Maxwell. I will continue my interview of her tomorrow." That would be today. The Department of Justice will share additional information about what we learned at the appropriate time. Maxwell, Epstein's former girlfriend, met with Blanche at the U.S. Attorney General's office located inside Tallahassee Federal Courthouse in Florida. She's being held currently at the Florida Correctional Institute, Tallahassee, where she's serving a 20-year sentence. Your thoughts, John?
Well, the plot thickens, that's for sure. And it is remarkable. I don't know if you ever covered this, but during the first trial of Epstein, where he got a beyond sweetheart deal, I think he had basically, I think we might have talked about this. The first time around, he had to like sleep in the prison. I'm not talking the latest one where he was killed, but the first time around, I mean, it was a sweetheart deal. He had to show up for a couple hours and then he could go off in the town. It was absurd. During those depositions for that trial, which led to his sweetheart deal, the women said, and I'm impressed by this, not in a good way, but I just wanted to bring this up. The women said that he could not perform sexually. His penis was mutilated. And I'm impressed. It just strikes me, the eunuch, historically speaking, how eunuchs have traditionally been involved in espionage, in court intrigue, and with all of this and all of these shadows and the plot thickening and all of this, that strikes me that you basically had a eunuch, if these women were correct, who could not perform sexually, and yet he's at the center of this control ring. And I say that there's nothing new under the sun. I'm just, that strikes me that this same aspect is still in play.
John, they're saying this about Epstein's organ.
Correct. Yes, I'll send you stuff after this. But yeah, the women were adamant that he could not perform genitally, sexually in that way. And and so that adds a whole other aspect of frustration or of psychology to it.
Yes. And here's a whole nother aspect. It may be, and I'm forming the hypothesis, that the reason Trump has been so adamant about not having done these things is because it wasn't literally he who did them, but the real Donald Trump, whom he has replaced. This is astonishing stuff, John. Let me just preface by saying I've done a lot of research on the use of body doubles. Hillary, for example, when she debated Bernie Sanders and even Donald Trump on the national stage, Use a body double, a younger, slimmer, healthier, far more attractive version, because, of course, it would convey a much better impression to potential voters. I've done a great deal of research on the death of Paul McCartney in 1966 and his replacement by whom I take to be an even better musician, but who's 4 inches taller, has good teeth, whereas Paul had bad, has a normal palate, whereas Paul had a narrow. If you want to follow up, go to my blog at jameshfetzer.org and track down the article, Why Ringo's Confession We Replace Paul Appears to Be Authentic. And more recently, proof the occupant of the White House for the last 4 years was not the real Joe Biden of Delaware. There are physical attributes that make it categorically impossible for them to be the same person. They have a different shape and size of skull, for example. They also have different handwriting and signatures. They also have different manners and styles of speech. I went back, like the 2007, for the real Joe Biden addressing an audience. He's very articulate. He's very animated. He uses his hands and gestures very much, as do I. Impressive. The guy in the White House for 4 years, more like a walking cadaver. No affect, no expression, no articulation, difficult getting words out, no gestures whatsoever. Not the same guy. So for 4 years, we had an imposter president. There have to have been an awful lot of officials in Washington who were aware. Thus, I may be more open-minded than most when the State of the Union publishes the possibility we had a POTUS pretender. Everything now points to a doppelganger, someone who looks like occupying the Oval Office. Is it really Donald Trump? Forensic evidence emerging that may prove Trump was replaced. And by the way, if I didn't emphasize, one of the differences between Paul and Fall, or fake Paul, turns out to be William Shepard, also known as Billy Shears, whom the Beatles introduced during the Sgt. Pepper event, was 4 inches taller than Paul. Well, we're going to find a similar height difference here. The real Donald Trump is about 6'3". The current version closer to 5'10". They cannot be the same person. Look here at that expression. Now that's a real Donald Trump. Notice his ears there. They kind of curl up as they connect, and where they are in relation to his eyes and their size. Here you have a side view of the guy in office now above and the real Donald Trump below. This is going to come as very difficult for people to appreciate. Notice current Trump ears are attached. Notice the jaw. Notice the extension to the neck. Here you got Trump today. Here you got Trump today and the ear contrast. People are born with a genetic predisposition for either attached lobes or detached. The following photos clearly show the difference between the earlobe types. Now go back to the top and compare Trump photos when he was younger to those taken in 2019. The younger
Dr.
photos
Fetzer?
show a tad. Yeah.
Can you go back to that picture, please? The banner was blocking it out, so I've removed the banner for the moment. Just show us that picture again, please, of the 2 earlobes.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Yeah. There you go. See how it's attached versus dangling. Okay, attached, I mean, it just runs right into the side of the head. Right into the side of the head rather than having a dangle. So this appears to be the real Trump. Meanwhile, Trump photo when he was younger. The younger show attached earlobes. The most recent show detached earlobes. Whereas the human ear often grows larger with age, Trump's ears are noticeably smaller at 73 years old. Scientists who specialize in human anatomy know the ears do grow with age, but the earlobe one is born with does not change. Another key data point is captured by the following photos. Relative to his mouth, Trump's ears are located significantly lower on his head today, even though they're smaller. This particular physical development dynamic is counterintuitive and cannot be easily explained. So here you have Trump today. It looks to me like they said smaller. I don't know, even larger, but in relation to his eyes, here they're lower in relation to his eyes. Meanwhile, the Millennium Report performed an exhaustive vetting process on Donald Trump during the 2 years prior to the 2016 election. Watched many videos of Trump when he was younger, covering the preceding decade. We're quite impressed. The Trump of 2016 projected in a manner that was radically different than the Trump of his younger years. And we closely watched the videos from the 80s, 90s, and later. We even found ourselves saying to each other, he's like a completely different person. Well, let me give you an illustration. I went back to Trump appearing on with David Letterman, and he's not only taller, Letterman's tall, they're both about 6'3", but he has a totally different manner. He's very restrained, he's soft-spoken, he's articulate, but he's subtle, he's witty, understated, modest, not at all like the Trump of today. Thus they ask themselves, it's like a completely different person. Well, is he? Researchers and investigators are highly encouraged to view the many mainstream videos available on YouTube. The very diplomatic and articulate Trump of 3 decades ago has all but disappeared. Very strange indeed. And oh, by the way, Trump teeth and nose are also significantly different today from his younger photos too. Editor's note. The Millennium Report, which is same publisher as State of the Nation, fully acknowledges that folks who move in the Palm Beach, Florida high society circles are likely to have all kinds of cosmetic surgery. However, transforming larger ears that once fanned out and had attached earlobes to what they look like now would have attracted a lot of attention during Trump's extremely high-profile career and incessant public exposure. Surely, that type of surgery could not have gone unnoticed. So there you see a comparison of the ears. Look at the face. I'm telling you, John, in my opinion, this would explain a lot, including his insistence that he didn't do things because he, the Donald Trump today, didn't do them. It was the real Trump who did them. So he can't have forgotten memories he never had because he wasn't the guy who did those things. One last point. The Donald Trump of the 80s and 90s would never have talked about obliterating Iran. It's as though his character has changed so profoundly that he's a totally different persona. Yes, a purposeful combination of psychiatric medication and MK Ultra mind control programming can produce a similar effect. But wouldn't that also be an example of a different Donald Trump occupying the Oval Office? Conclusion. It's entirely true that Donald Trump was either replaced or taken over. About this grim reality, there is no longer any doubt. The highly radioactive backstory to the multi-decade Zionist controversy is conclusively delineated in the expose that follows. And they're talking about a very special message to the Patriot movement. Donald Trump is not who we thought he was. There are, of course, several reasons for this POTUS takeover by Israel. However, the primary purpose is well explained by this article of paramount importance. Whistleblower warned about false flag attacks that justify U.S. invasion of Iran, found dead. John, I would like your thoughts about what we have here.
Wow, what a what a show of zingers today. There's been a few nuggets here that people are not going to find elsewhere. I'll tell you that much. Thank you for these insights, Dr. Fetzer. And yes, indeed, the plot thickens. Something I'd like to add to this discussion in general in the neighborhood of this is a conclusion I've reached about this ruling system, at least since the Second World War, is that it doesn't leave things to chance. There are certain aspects about this system, and one of them that I've intuited is watching and reading history and things is it doesn't leave things to chance. Now, I do not believe that everything is scripted. There are people who literally think every single person and event is laid out in advance. But I do believe there are interests that try to lay out a great deal of things in advance, whilst I leave that aspect of chaos and even democracy. I do believe these things are at play. However, to back up something, or just to introduce something to the neighborhood of what Dr. Fetzer brings up, I am of the mind that the idea of cloning and the idea of body doubles and things is far more expansive than we imagine. In the modern hospital system, that's collected, whether that's blood or placentas or whatnot, and you don't need much to clone, and that's taken from everybody in various degrees in this modern system. Additionally, I'm of the mind this system doesn't just throw things away and let things to chance. I'm of the mind that a lot of women who go in for abortions, that those babies are brought up. The woman doesn't necessarily know it. She thinks she went in there for an abortion. I believe that since the 60s and 70s and whatever, a lot of those babies have been brought up, and that they are, all of these things are reserves of labor and manpower by the millions and tens of millions. And you wonder, where do these people come up from, these news anchors and these celebrities and these politicians and soldiers? And this is just a huge farm of manpower. I'm of that opinion. I can't prove that right now, but I know how this system acts, and this sort of thing is not beyond the ken. And just the final point is, a lot of this is hopefully coming to a head in the head. Even right now, we have Candace Owens and the court trial with the Macrons over Brigitte Macron, so-called. Hopefully, a collision, and these questions need to be forced. So I thank Dr. Fetzer for introducing this, as painful for me as it might be.
Yes. And of course, I don't mean particularly that these are clones, that they're genetically identical, merely that they're close facsimiles, that they look a lot alike. But as in the case of Paul Fall, you have these significant differences, including, by the way, their ears, where Fall is the only person I've ever heard of caught wearing a fake earpiece because he was self-conscious that his ears were not the same as those of James Paul McCartney, the original founder with John Lennon of the Beatles. And they had that height difference, that teeth difference. You have similar characteristics here with Donald Trump and what appears to be his successor. John, you can close the slide set for us to have a final comment between us. I just want to thank you for these opportunities. And then I'm so much looking forward to offering my Conspiracy 101 course, Critical Thinking and Conspiracy Theories, which, as you have observed, is a 15-week college-level course where all the materials are provided by the instructor and where you will have homework assignments. And I think that you'll learn a lot about the nature of thinking, the nature of mind, the nature of language, the role of arguments, how to avoid common fallacies or commit them, and how scientific reasoning can be applied to conspiracy theories, beginning with JFK, 9/11, and the moon landing before we have a winter break. And then we'll look at a whole lot more, including Sandy Hook, Nice, Parkland, Charlottesville, Las Vegas, and more, eventually working around to some of the granddaddies of all time. John, I think that there's a lot there. From the comfort of your own home, you can develop your ability to think things through. So I want to thank you for having the opportunity to present my course through your institute.
Thank you, Dr. Fetzer. The honor is all ours. And as I said before, and I'll say again, you use the expression to think things through. And we have such access to information in our libraries, on the radio, with these podcasts and these shows. But what I think is a real benefit of a school in general and of this course coming up is the ability to put things into a systemized framework. We have all this information. That's great. And we could listen to podcasts all day, but the genius of this course is being able to organize that information in a systematic way, thinking things through indeed. And I would like to add that to one of the reasons people might want to consider this course, to kind of come at these topics, not just pell-mell, as we might have these things show up in our feed, but really to have this systemized understanding of conspiracies and indeed of logical thinking. So I will put that sub page of Dr. Fetzer's down below for the course. You can see all of the topics on the PDF there and a little promo video we lately recorded. And it's really encouraging to have people already signing up for this autumn course. In addition, Dr. Fetzer's typical site, jameshfetzer.org, and moonrockbooks.org are also down below. So Dr. Fetzer, thank you very much for your insights. You've given us a lot to think about, a lot of zingers today, whether it's the Epstein stuff, the stuff in Europe with NATO, and certainly with the Trump body double allegation, a lot there. And to the audience, thank you for your attention. Farewell.